Yo, check this out. What is that? A necklace or something. Looks like gold.
Hey, maybe it's here for a reason.
You're listening to Fun with Horror with your hosts, Scotty and Andrew.
Hey, everybody. I'm Scotty.
And I'm Andrew.
And welcome to episode number 127 of Fun with Horror. We are the movie review podcast in which two long-distance best friends stay in touch by taking turns giving each other horror movies to watch and discuss.
It was me last time. I got to pick the movie, and I chose In a Violent Nature. So, stay tuned, of course, to the end of this episode where we get to hear what Scotty picks for our next movie.
I can't wait for you to find out, buddy.
Oh boy, I don't know what you're picking. I really don't.
I'm picking the greatest movie we have ever done.
Dr. Giggles?
No, we already did that one.
Oh, I thought maybe we were going to redo it.
The greatest movie we will have ever done.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yep, okay, then I have no idea.
Wow, I'm surprised
Hi,
you said Dr. Giggles, though.
Yeah, well...
Instead of Psycho Goreman or Day of the Candyman 3 Day of the Dead.
That's true. But I might bring up Psycho Goreman today. Mm-hmm. And
I might too.
I researched.
Wow.
A little.
How did you have time for all that?
I didn't.
You did it while you were taking a crap.
Yep, exactly.
That's when I do all my research too.
just so everyone listening gets our process.
Yeah, so everyone, we're going to be talking about taking a crap in this episode. So
Yep. I'm actually recording on the toilet, so
that is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that. That's terrible.
That's terrible. I'm so sorry.
No. We just lost everybody. Oh, no.
Disgusting. I'm so sorry.
What have you done?
Well,
That's the end of Fun
over.
with Horror, everybody.
Yep.
Jeez.
Yep. My bad. Sorry, everybody.
On that note, it's time to thank our patrons.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Yes, thank you.
But we do have a new patron.
Yay! That's awesome.
We'd like to say hello to Zach. Zach, thank you for being a patron.
Yes, thank you, Zach. Thank you for joining. Thank you.
And Zach, you know what we like to say? We love you.
We love you, Zach. Thank you.
But seriously, thank you for being a patron.
Yeah.
Zach has been listening to the podcast for a long time and messages me sometimes, and it's just always a joy when people message me and say that they're enjoying themselves, because that's all we want, is for people to enjoy themselves.
Yeah, exactly, man. I that's why I do it. I love for people to enjoy this. I mean, I do it because I get to hang out with you, but that's such a sweet benefit that people get to enjoy it. I think it's amazing.
And
yeah,
coming attractions, not to spoil anything, but we get to hang out in person this year.
Yeah, we do. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so everybody, Andrew is coming down to visit me the weekend of, I think, October 13th, 12th, whatever that is, that weekend.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And he's going to come here. He's going to spend a couple days, and we're going to go to Son of Monster Palooza.
It's going to be awesome.
And
yeah,
we are going to go see Terrifier 3 on opening night.
Yeah.
And try to record an episode in person.
We're not even going to try. We will record an episode in person.
We will record in person. Yeah, it's going to be difficult, though.
I know. I mean, well, the reason it'll be difficult is I get too distracted looking at you on the computer, and if I have to be right next to you, it's impossible. Get lost in those eyes. Come on. Impossible.
Debbie Gibson.
I met Debbie Gibson once.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this.
Oh, well, there you go.
This isn't the last time or the first time you've told me that you've gotten lost in my eyes, pal.
Just because I do.
real quick, what's been going on?
All sorts of stuff, but I have to tell you what happened. This is wild. This was a medical thing with me.
Oh, no.
No, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because of the name of this issue. So, this last weekend, I went to lake with family, and I got a sunburn because I'm dumb and wasn't putting sunscreen on. That was my fault. Dumb. Especially with my complexion. But a couple days after, so I'm sitting there doing some work, and all of a sudden, I just start freaking out. I have this massive pain shooting out of all of my sunburn that feels like just hot needles that are itchy, and I'm freaking out. I'm like screaming. Like it is something I've never experienced before. And poor Kylie's in the other room, and she calls Cindy, my wife, and is like, what's going on? And Cindy comes up, she's like, what's happening? And I'm like, I don't know. I have never felt this. I'm freaking out. And so she looks it up, and it's this thing called the devil's itch, or it's also called hell's itch.
Wow.
This is a real thing, and it's rare. Of course I get it, because why not? That's just life. But it's like this insane pain that comes from sunburns a few days after, and you can't do anything to get rid of it. So it's like 2 hours of suffering. And I've truly have never felt this in my life. And I Google it, and there's like videos of people just writhing on the floor with this itch. Like, it's this crazy thing. It was horrible, but I was like, because of the name of it, I was like, I have to bring it up on the podcast. But lesson learned, I will always wear sunscreen. My wife always tells me I need to anyway, and I should listen to her because she's smarter than me. But after that, hell, I will always wear sunscreen. I'm afraid of that.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
man,
amazing.
It was wild. Yeah,
so aloe doesn't even help?
No, nothing helps. I mean, truly, you just have to bear with it and suffer. Like, it was... There's like Reddit. If anyone that's listening, if you've had it, please let me know. If you've had devil's itch or hell's itch or whatever name it is, I'm curious because I want to know. And if it was as insane for you as at least it felt for me. It's wild.
You know what, buddy?
Yeah, man.
True story. The last time I had a really, really, really bad sunburn, I became a massive Dave Matthews Band fan.
Oh, we had very similar reactions then, I guess.
I'm not going to tell you the story, but it is true. I'm just telling you.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Huh.
What would you say? It's a Dave Matthews joke. Come on.
Hey, speaking of poop, didn't their bus accidentally poop on a bunch of people?
That was a long time ago, pal. Stop it.
Sorry.
They already apologized and made up for it. So
I know.
stop. Just stop.
But what a story. What a story.
I've seen a couple of movies.
What have you seen?
And I'm not going to tell you much because both of these movies we're definitely going to talk about on the podcast at some point.
Okay.
The first one is, or was, my most anticipated movie of this year, Maxine.
Oh, dang. You went and saw Maxine.
And I liked it.
Okay.
And then last weekend, I saw Longlegs.
All right, dude. Oh, my gosh.
And I liked it.
Okay. I have been both. I've been so curious about both, but man, Longlegs has been getting this, like, just everyone is talking about it. It's one of those movies that I feel like everyone's talking about. Whether they like it or don't, I would say more on the like side. I've seen a few that people didn't maybe enjoy it, but I'd say majority of what I've read, people really enjoyed this movie. And so it's definitely it's an experience, is what I believe people have been saying. So I'm very curious about it. So curious.
Well, I'm sure we'll do it on the podcast at some point.
Me too.
It's a podcast-worthy movie. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Good.
But back to your sunburn. So when you got your sunburn, you were in nature, right? Yes?
Yes.
What kind of nature were you in?
The way it felt, in a violent nature.
You don't know what you just did, okay? That's his mother's necklace. It's the only thing holding his soul at rest.
Okay, fine, then we'll just give it back.
You can't just give it back. He's awake now.
In a Violent Nature was directed and written by Chris Nash. And I'm actually going to read you everybody in this because it's an indie film and I want people to have their names read.
Yeah, do it.
So we have the cast. It's Barrett playing Johnny, Andrea Pavlovic playing Chris, Cameron Love as Colt, Reese Presley as the Ranger, Liam Leone as Troy, Charlotte Cregan as Aurora, Leah Rose Sebastianis as Brody, Sam Rolston as Aaron, Alexander Oliver as Evan, Timothy Paul McCarthy as Chuck, Tom Jacobs as Johnny's dad's voice, Casey McDonald as the radio newscaster and the voice, and of course, Lauren Mary Taylor as the woman.
Very good.
Thanks, man. That was a lot to read.
Buddy, I'd like to change things up a little bit this week.
Please, let's do it.
You know, I've been thinking about this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, I've just been stubborn, but, you know, other podcasts, a bunch of other podcasts, they actually talk about their opinions of whatever movie they're talking about before they get into spoilers.
Right.
And we've always just done our spoiler warning, 3-minute recap, then what we think of the movie. And I've always just been like, well, that's just how we do it here at Fun with Horror.
Right.
But, you know, I think we should tell people so that they can at least hear what we thought of the movie.
Yeah.
Before we spoil the hell out of it.
I am just fine with that.
So from now on, everybody, we're going to give this a try. After we talk about who's in the movie, who made the movie, Andrew and I are going to tell you what we thought of the movie so that you can hear that at least before, and then you can turn it off if you haven't seen the movie. So before spoilers, no spoilers here. Andrew, what did you think of In a Violent Nature?
Buddy, I kind of knew what we were getting into with this movie. I didn't really watch the trailer. I watched maybe 10 seconds of it.
Okay.
And then was like, okay, that's good. I had heard that it was a slow burn, and I'd heard that there was some shots that took a while, blah, 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 blah. So I kind of knew what we were getting into. I think even if I hadn't known that, I would have enjoyed this movie. Having watched it, I really enjoyed this movie, man. I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Nice.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And we'll talk. We'll talk more. But yes, I enjoyed it. What about you?
Well, buddy, In a Violent Nature at this moment is my new favorite horror movie of this year.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that makes me happy. Yay.
And without spoilers, I'm just going to say right now that I had the most interesting experience watching this movie.
Okay.
And how it affected me.
Huh.
And that's all I'm going to say. I'll tell you more after the 3-minute recap.
Okay. Yes, you piqued my interest, friend.
But before we get into the 3-minute recap, now we can warn everybody that we are about to spoil In a Violent Nature. So if you haven't seen the movie, this is your warning. You can pause the podcast and then keep listening after you've watched the movie. It's got to be on Shudder at some point, right?
Well, it's made by Shudder and so it'll be there. Yeah, for sure. It's
got to be soon. But if you haven't seen it, you should definitely do yourselves a favor and watch it. But like Andrew said, be prepared for kind of a slow burn at times.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know.
But I think and like I said, I mean, with me, I'm fine that I knew it, but even if I hadn't, I think I would have been fine with this one. It just worked. When you see the story, it works. Like, it just works, and it's hard to explain without spoiling it a little bit.
Okay, well, buddy, this is the part of the podcast where I roll a virtual 20-sided die.
Oh, boy.
And you tell me when to stop, and if it stops on odd, you get to do the 3-minute recap. If it stops on even, I'm doing it. So you just tell me when to stop, buddy.
Stop.
It stopped on the number 14.
It's you.
Once again, I get to do it. Yeah.
Let me know if you ever want to change this, because now I feel like we're going to you always doing it. So,
and I will never want to change this.
All right, good.
I love the randomness of rolling a die and seeing who's going to do it.
It's fun. It's a little. It's stressful in a good way. It's good stress, but
not for me.
Well, for me, it is for sure.
Well,
as you know,
I love listening to myself talk. So
stop. I already know that's not true. Knock it off. Oh my gosh. I love you, buddy.
I love you too, buddy.
Oh, thanks. So you have 3 minutes. I did prepare in advance that just in case it was you, I did steal a locket from a little grave kind of area I saw. I don't know what happened, but someone kind of popped out of that area, and I talked with them a little bit. I said, you can get this back. If you want it, I can give it to you right now. But then I said, just kidding. I said, I'll give it to you, but after Scotty does his 3-minute recap, if it goes too long, you got to kill him. If not, don't kill him, and I'll give it to you. So just heads up. You got 3 minutes.
Well, okay. I'll do my best.
Good.
I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime.
So In a Violent Nature, as Andrew mentioned, starts with the woods. And we hear some voices talking, and then somebody takes this locket off of this metal pole or something that's sticking in the ground, and they walk away. The pole starts moving. We start to hear maybe some noise coming from inside the pole stuck in the ground. And then what happens? But this person emerges from under the ground, and he's kind of wounded. He's got sores and stuff all over his body where you can see his body and his face. And we find out later that this is Johnny, everybody. Johnny starts walking through the woods, and he keeps walking, and he's walking. And the camera is following Johnny. We're following Johnny as he walks through the woods and makes his way. He makes his way to this house, and there's a guy arguing with another guy who we find out the second guy is the ranger later on. Johnny starts to walk towards the ranger in the truck, but he drives away. So he goes into the house. There's a locket in the house. And then the other guy comes in, and he shoots his gun, not at Johnny, but maybe as a warning because he thinks it's the ranger, and he's telling the ranger to get out. But no, he sees it's Johnny, and he's like, I didn't do anything to you, blah, blah. And he runs into the woods, gets caught in a trap, and Johnny kills him. And Johnny keeps walking. Then Johnny comes upon these kids that are camping in the woods in this little wooden, like this house in the woods. And yeah, I mean, Johnny starts killing these people. And we're following Johnny the entire time. That is the point of view of this movie. We're seeing pretty much everything from the killer's point of view. And he starts killing these kids because we kind of figure this. He's trying to get his locket. We find out that Johnny is this mentally disabled person who these firefighters in the region made fun of, and one of the firefighters slipped on one of Johnny's toys and blamed Johnny for being out of work for a while. And so to play a trick on him, they lured Johnny to the top of this fire tower. And when he got up there, there was a fireman dressed in this old-timey firefighter's mask, and he scared Johnny. Johnny fell off and broke his neck. But then 10 days later, somebody who looks like Johnny massacred all of these firefighters. And then it seems later he massacred other people. Somewhat unclear in the movie, but we have hints of his backstory. So now Johnny is trying to get this locket back because it's his mother's locket, and it's what keeps him under the ground. We find out this through the course of the movie. So Johnny ends up killing all of these kids except for the last two. He ends up at this ranger station where he had come earlier in the movie and where he had gotten this firefighter's mask that is the old-timey mask that we assume was used to scare him when he fell. And he puts this mask on, and he does a lot of killings in this mask. And so now this is becoming kind of an iconic thing in this movie. We're back at the ranger station. The ranger shoots him. We find out that the ranger has come up against Johnny in the past where Johnny killed a bunch of people, and the ranger put Johnny in the ground and kept him there by putting the locket on. But now they're like, give him the locket back, and he's like, that won't help. He's just going to keep killing. They do some stupid things, and Johnny breaks the ranger's back and kills him. We'll get into that later. And then he starts walking through the woods. Lots of walking in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then we get to a point in the movie where the last two, Chris and Colt, are they're going to trap Johnny. Well, Colt is stupid and gets too close to Johnny, dies. Chris, instead of continuing with this trap, she just puts everything down, puts the locket on it, and then runs. And she's running through the woods, and now we're following Chris. The point of view of the movie changes. We're following Chris through the woods, and She's running all night, it seems. She always feels like Johnny is right behind her. She makes it to the road after she has, I guess, fallen and gotten a branch embedded in her ankle that she takes out, but now she's injured. She's on the road. This lady picks her up. This lady says she'll take her to a hospital. And as they're driving, it's a long drive, the lady starts telling her a story about, I think, her brother or somebody else who survived a bear attack, and talks about how this bear is still in the woods, and it's just an animal, and some animals just keep killing. They don't seem to have a reason, they just keep doing it. She notices that Chris is kind of falling asleep, and she doesn't want her to die, so she wakes her up, and she says she has to stop the bleeding. So she stops the truck. Chris is like, no, keep driving, what are you doing? And they've been driving for a while. The lady comes around and she's tying a makeshift tourniquet onto Chris's leg to stop the bleeding for a while. As she's doing it, Chris is like looking out into the woods on the side of the road, and she's just looking. And you just see the woods, and you're wondering if somebody's going to appear in those woods. And then the camera starts looking at different scenes in the woods, images of the woods. And then we see the gas can. The camera pans over, and there's the gas can that Chris laid down, but the locket is not on it anymore. Credits roll. End of the movie.
Dude, just under 3 minutes. That was perfect. That was perfect. Well done.
Yes.
I have the locket, and
You can leave it.
I don't.
You can leave it. Oh.
I don't have the lock. Where'd it go?
Oh no.
Uh-oh. Anyway,
we'll be fine. I'm sure.
Nothing to worry about. Oh man. So wow, I didn't know this was going to be like your favorite. I love that. That makes me hi. After watching this right as it ended, I was like, man, I wish we could talk right now. I did think that I really wanted to talk to you.
Okay, let me tell you something, pal.
Yeah. Oh yes, please tell me. Yes.
Because 2 weeks ago, we're recording this on a Sunday. I watched this 2 weeks ago. And at that time, you were like, I think I'm going to have time to record next weekend a little bit early. That'll be okay? And I'm like, yes. Because I wanted to talk to you about this movie. And then you're like, I'm not going to have time this weekend, buddy. How about next weekend like normal? And I'm like, oh, and I wasn't upset because, you were making me wait. I was upset because I wanted to talk to you about this movie so badly, and
I'm so
I had
sorry.
to wait 2 weeks.
But we're here now.
Yeah. Yes, we're
I know.
here.
I'm sorry, man. I know.
No, it's fine.
Life.
It's fine.
The-
It's fine, but I was excited to talk to you about this movie because I had such a weird experience watching it.
Yes, please tell me what that's about. I am very curious about this.
So, I'll get into why this movie affected me so much and why it's my favorite horror movie of the year so far.
Mm-hmm.
Because I loved Infested, because Infested got to me and it scared me. This movie, I was watching it, and at a certain point, I'm sitting there just kind of looking around my living room going, okay, this walking gimmick is wearing itself a little thin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's just walking, and there's like these long-ass scenes of him walking through the woods. Right. Okay, and that's what you get. That's what you get in this movie. You get a lot of scenes of the camera following Johnny as he's just walking and walking and walking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to think, okay, maybe this movie, because the kills are really good, maybe this movie's like maybe 3 out of 5 stars for me.
Okay.
And then we get to the point where the last act starts. And this is the point where Chris runs away from Johnny as he's bludgeoning Colt's body after he's already killed him, but now he's just in a rage and he's just bludgeoning his body with an axe.
It's brutal.
And Chris runs, and the point of view of the movie changes to Chris.
Right.
First of all, I thought, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there going, okay, wow. Okay, so now I guess we're going to follow her for the rest of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then the movie played out, and when that movie ended, I realized, she gets in this truck with this lady, and you're wondering, okay, is Johnny going to jump out of the woods?
Right.
Is this lady somehow in cahoots
That's what I thought.
with Johnny? Not necessarily in cahoots, but maybe she knows she needs to sacrifice this girl to Johnny so that Johnny doesn't destroy the town or something like that. I'm thinking of all of the stereotypes of slasher movies.
Right.
And then, so then she stops the truck to put the tourniquet on her. And again, I'm like, okay, is this where Johnny's going to come out of the woods?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting to realize something. I'm starting to realize that this movie has a similar ending to another movie. And I'm not going to spoil that movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just going to say that No Country for Old Men, have you seen it?
I have. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Has a very similar ending.
Yep.
And I started to think maybe this movie's going to have an ending kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized I was watching this movie in the dark, lights out, and I realized I was really a little bit freaked out.
Good.
And I realized how brilliant it was that this movie showed Johnny walking in such extended sequences, because once the movie switches to Chris's point of view, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, but where's Johnny?
Right, yeah.
And I was actually a little bit scared and unsettled, because now you don't know where Johnny is anymore. And he's just walking. And you know that he's just walking.
Yep.
And then you have the ending with the locket where it's gone. Watching this a second time last night to prepare for this and taking notes, I loved it's an ambiguous ending.
Yeah.
And I love those.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that you don't know, really, is Johnny still walking? Or is he at peace because of the necklace? But either way, he's an animal in those woods.
Right. Exactly.
And the story that the lady tells about the bear starts to make sense. And man, I just didn't expect this. And then you have all these amazing kills.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I have all of them written down because I was like, that's a part of this movie, man.
So, in relation to what I just said, what did you think about this movie? What were your thoughts as you watched it?
Honestly, so as we're watching him walk, I mean, at the beginning, we see him come out of the ground, and then we watch him walk, and it was kind of there that I was like, wow, this is going to be a love letter to 80s horror movies. And as I was watching and as I was seeing certain things happen, and some of the dialogue was kind of like cringy, but it was meant to be, I was like, oh, this really is a love letter. Like, I'm so happy. Like, it feels like a modern day 80s slasher. And I love 80s slashers. I just love them. They mean a lot to me. So watching this, I had those feelings of an 80s slasher, but it's modernized and it's done so well and it's done with love. And I was like, oh man, I'm here to enjoy this. Like, I'm here to just sit and relax, kind of, but like just enjoy this, like this movie that I think is going to mean something to me. Like, it was just it was a good feeling. Like, of course we're watching some horrible kills and craziness, but it was still like, just this love letter. And I really appreciated it, man. I really did.
But then, so what did you think of the last act? Like, how did that affect you as you watched it?
So it actually hit me differently. Like, I loved it. I loved that we switched over. I loved the whole monologue at the end. And afterward, I was like, I know her. And when I looked it up, that she's from Friday the 13th Part 2, I was like, oh, I love it.
Who was she in Friday the 13th Part 2?
Vicky, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, Vicky. And I know that character because I used to work with someone that looked so much like her, and it was crazy to me. Anyway, so I knew that character, but I was like, she looks so, I know her. And then when I looked it up, I was like, oh, that's even better. Like, this is just beautiful that they got her. I love it. But I almost looked at it a little different, like, because I looked at it and as we watch her run, I'm like, man, it's so weird because in horror movies, we are so used to watching, like, the final girl run. And we can watch them run. There's certain movies where they're running for a while. Texas Chainsaw is one that comes to mind. She's running a long time. And we're kind of just, like, used to it. But when they turn it on its head and we see it from the other point of view, it's sort of like, oh, that's different. That's unique. Why haven't we done this? You know, we always watch the final girl. Why have we never really watched the killer? And I kind of just looked at it like it was just a cool moment to see it from the other side of things. And seeing her at that moment kind of triggered that. Of course, obviously, we watched him walk the whole time, but it wasn't until we finally see her run that I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I'm always used to. Like, that was cool. I really liked that we got to that moment, or this whole movie with him. I thought that was such a new and fun experience in the genre. So, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't answer the question, but that's just how I felt for that.
No,
that section.
I got it. Yeah. But of course, in this one, the difference is that we don't actually see him chasing her.
Right. True.
She's just running, and at times, you know, she's running through the woods at night, and you hear the crickets and you hear the sounds of the woods. I really liked the way that they brought in these sound effects of just him.
Yeah.
And it was the sound of him, the same sound of him axing Colt, like bludgeoning Colt with the axe, but also you could imagine it as the sound of him just walking behind her.
True.
And I'm sitting there thinking, is he right behind her? Is he still behind her? Because he doesn't run really.
Right.
She's running. He doesn't run. He just walks. So is he somehow behind her, or is this in her head a little bit? Is she freaking out because she knows he's coming?
And she just saw her friend, brutally killed. So, there's definitely something going on, in her mind, of course. So, yeah. Yeah, great, dude. It's great.
And that's the other thing I'm going to bring up, though, about the walking.
Oh, okay.
We've talked about Friday the 13th and the entire series, and we've talked about the one summer that I watched all of the movies. All 10 Friday the 13th movies plus the remake.
Right.
And the thing that bothered me was that Jason just walks.
Right.
And people I could run away from him and I'd be fine, but somehow Jason pops up and something stops people. It's ridiculous. It's 80s. It's beautiful. Okay.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I get it.
It's beautiful. It's great, but realistically,
right.
It's unrealistic.
Right. Yep.
And it always bothered me, and that's why I like Friday the 13th, the remake, because that Jason runs and he's scary.
Yeah.
Somehow, Chris Nash was able to make a walking killer that just walks scary.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't teleport anywhere.
Yeah.
He's just nonstop walking.
But again, it makes sense, too. When you see the kills, you're like, oh, he made it there. Or he threw the axe and got one, and then the other one was already hurt. Like you're watching, you're like, okay, yeah. I get it. Yeah. Which is great. That's awesome.
So let's talk about a few quibbles.
Yeah, please. Yes.
Because while this movie is, at the moment, my favorite horror movie of the year.
Right.
And let me just stress that that I've now seen Maxine and Longlegs.
Oh, dang. Yeah, dude.
This is still my favorite right now.
Wow. Oh, wow.
But I still have issues with this movie.
Yeah, please.
Just a few.
Yep. I'd love to hear them.
Stupid people. Okay?
Yeah.
We have a couple of stupid people moments.
True.
Number one, when Chris and Colt make their way to the ranger station, and the ranger is there with them, and he's telling them the story, and then he shoots Johnny, and Johnny falls.
Yes.
This ranger knows what Johnny is.
Yes.
But yet he still walks right the hell up to him, because they got to chain Johnny up, right? But the fact that they walk right up to him,
yeah,
it's like, what, are you stupid? Like, hold the gun on him until you're ready with the chains, and then do what you're doing, but don't get like right next to him.
Right. Yeah.
And then of course when the guy's like, I can't do it, I'm too scared. Well, then you hold the gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. It was just a little dumb. And then Colt, Johnny kills the ranger, and Colt and Chris go into the woods with the plan that they are going to lure Johnny to the fire tower.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris has, what does she have? She has the gas can, and what else?
She had two things. Well, she had the necklace too, but yeah, it was the gas can. I can't remember. She did have something else in the other hand, though. An axe, maybe? Shovel? I can't remember.
Oh, she has one of the animal traps, one of the traps.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yep.
So they're going to trap Johnny and I assume set him on fire.
Mm-hmm.
So why the hell does Colt just jump up right behind Johnny to distract him?
Yeah, you're right.
I was like, you're so dumb.
No, I agree. I had that same thought. And because he's like, you need to get there or whatever. I'll distract him. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You can distract him so she can run and get stuff set up. Yeah. But then, he pops up a foot behind him, which of course Johnny just destroys him. And you're like, well, yeah dipweed.
Turns around and slams his axe into Colt's face.
Yeah, give yourself some distance, guy. Come on. Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good quibble.
And this isn't really a quibble, but right. I did admit that I had to kind of laugh at Johnny's quote unquote luck.
Okay.
Johnny just walks, and there's quite a few times where he just walks up on these people and he's right there and they just happen to not turn around and see him.
Yeah.
It's like you don't notice movement out of the corner of your eye. He's right there.
Yep.
But that didn't bother me. It's just, for me, it was kind of funny.
I totally get that. No, I agree. I get it. Yep.
But that's it. Like everything else, man.
I didn't write any quibbles down, actually. I did. Okay. However, hearing what you said, I agree with you 100%. I absolutely agree with you. I don't like when people make dumb choices, so I agree. But again, I had fun, so I'm like, whatever. Like you, The only thing I had and it kind of hit me again, this movie hit me a few times where I'm like, oh man, some of this dialogue's so cheesy, but I was like, but it's meant, some of this dialogue should be cheesy. It again is kind of this love letter to 80s slashers, which have some of the most horrific, ridiculous lines. And so when I was like, well, good. It should have some lines like that. That's a good thing. And so it took me just 1 second of hearing it to go oh, but it should be this way. I like that. Yeah. I'm okay with this. That's absolutely fine. So that was the only quibble I had, but then at first, and then I was like, oh no, this is great. This is supposed to be that way. So I didn't really have quibbles, but hearing what you said, I would agree with you 100%. So yeah.
Now, did you, obviously you didn't get this because you've only watched this once, but I did on a second viewing. I think it's very cool where Johnny, the first place he goes is that house.
Yes.
With the old guy, and I was wondering, is this his dad or whatever? But it's just an old guy, maybe an old firefighter or something.
Mm-hmm.
On a second viewing, I love the fact that you realize that the guy leaving the house in the truck is the ranger.
Yeah.
And Johnny starts to walk towards the truck as it's driving away, and you realize it's because this is the guy that stopped Johnny the last time.
That's cool. Yeah, totally.
But then Johnny realizes he's not going to catch up to the truck, so he goes into the house. And so, yeah, I like that a lot.
I did too. No, and now that I hear that, I didn't even think of that. But like you said, second viewing. But I love that. That's great. That's so good.
I also like the fact that Johnny's not really stupid.
Right. Yeah.
He shows a lot of signs of intelligence for an undead being.
Right. Yep. For sure.
When he first starts walking, he stops to look down at an animal that was caught in a trap.
Mm-hmm.
Which I like, and I don't know if it was purposeful symbolism, but, an animal stuck in a trap. And Johnny just got out of a trap.
Yep. Oh, that's good. I like that.
He's compared to an animal later in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he also realizes that these pink ribbons, it seems he looks at the pink ribbons, so he realizes that those are trap locations.
Right.
He's in a trap area.
No, I agree. I feel like anything he does, some of the traps or some of the ways he gets people, he's, like I said, he gets it. He knows what he's doing. He's got a plan for some of it, but I agree. He knows what he's doing. It's great.
Yeah.
It's
and
great.
He assumes he's unstoppable.
Right.
So if anything he does is less than intelligent, it's not because he's being dumb about it. It's just he knows he's unstoppable.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So he's just going to keep walking at you if you are coming at him with something.
Right. Yep.
I also especially like when he is smart enough to lure a person out of the cabin by putting a stick on the car horn.
Yes, that was
great. And then
he
he puts his axe down and does a lap around the house. And then he comes in and gets his axe again and goes after Troy.
It was perfect too. And I love too that we see, and I can't remember who it is, someone in the house sees him and
Evan.
is like, what?
Evan.
Evan. Yeah, sorry, yes. I thought that was great though, because it was, again, there was some of those moments where I'm like, yeah, someone probably would see him, like, if they're sitting there. That's great. I love that. And then he comes out with a gun, you know, to take care of it. Like, it wasn't like he's like, oh, I didn't see anything. You know, it was just a good moment too. So, but I did love following him around the house. I thought the pacing was perfect. Yeah, I loved it. It was a great moment.
Did you watch with subtitles?
I honestly don't remember. I can't remember. Maybe?
Because one thing I noticed the second time, because I did put on subtitles the second time because there are quieter conversations because Johnny isn't close to the people.
Right. Yes.
And I wanted to know what some of the people were saying.
Fair.
Plus, I'd already seen it without subtitles, so I'm like, I'm cool watching with subtitles this time. The first time I watched the movie, you know, they take the selfie by the fire and Johnny is behind them.
Yeah, that was great.
And I was like waiting for a scene where they look at the picture and they notice somebody standing behind them. And I was like, that would be creepy as hell.
Right.
But that scene never really happens. But the second time I watched the movie, I realized that her and I think Troy are having an off-screen conversation where she talks about there was somebody in that picture.
Yes.
And Troy's like, it was just dirt on the lens.
Yeah, I must have had subtitles because I did see or hear that. So, yeah, which is great. But again, that's kind of a cool moment where we didn't need to see it, but it happened.
Yeah.
You know, and okay, great. They saw something. You know, I mean, it's
But at
cool.
least they referred to it, you know?
Right, exactly, yeah. Yep.
They didn't just like ignore it for the rest of the movie.
Right, exactly. It's great, man.
So I think this is a movie, we've done this once before. We should talk about the kills.
Yeah. That's why I wrote them all down, because I figured, I was like, this is a movie where the kills are a character almost. It's you have to talk about them.
And the reason the kills were like this is because, and I'm going to go to a behind the scenes real quick.
Oh, yes, please.
Chris Nash in an article was talking about how he wanted this to be like a slasher movie.
Right.
Throwback kind of slasher movie, but he wanted it to be different.
Okay.
You know, and he knew that people were going to be, some people were not going to like the slow burn aspect of the movie.
Right. Okay. Sure.
He wanted to make sure that he put in great kills, and he said, quote, "We have to have great kills for even the haters to love." Which is interesting because that was kind of the feeling I got from people after they watched this movie when it first came out. There were a lot of people that were like, it was okay. There was some stuff I didn't like about it. And when I watched it, I was like, I get it. You know, they love the slasher stuff, but some people weren't into the artistic side of this movie.
Right. Yeah.
But I loved it.
Me too. No, I thought it was great. It worked. Yeah, it worked beautifully. But yeah, we got to talk. One thing before we jump into these kills, though, that I wanted to.
Yeah.
So one thing I appreciated about these kills was that you could tell it wasn't real. I mean, obviously, but for some of it, I was like, oh, that's fake. And I'm great with that. Like, because I love practical effects, but two, it kind of gave me that 80s feel where you're like, oh, that's not real. That's something. You know what I mean? And so there were some of them, not all of them, but there were some moments where I was just like, oh, I kind of love that I can tell that that's not quite real. There were some that looked pretty good.
I'll be honest. I think there's only one of them that didn't look real to me.
Okay.
All the other ones, in fact, there was a couple that I was so impressed because one of the reason I tell people when they say, why do you love horror movies so much? Because they don't.
Right.
One of the things you and I have talked about and that I tell people is that it's like watching magic. You know these kills aren't real, but you're watching to see the movie magic, the special effects makeup magic.
Right.
That they use to make them seem as real as possible.
Sure. Yep. That's true.
You know, so when I watch these movies, I'm not like overjoyed because I'm watching somebody get slaughtered.
Right.
I'm overjoyed because I'm watching how well they made it look real or not.
Totally. Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. I do.
And back in the 80s, things like you said, things didn't look very real a lot of times, but it's still fun to go back and see what they did to try to make them look as real as possible with what they had back in the day.
Totally. Yep, I agree.
Kevin Bacon, great example.
Yeah,
Kevin Bacon
absolutely.
in the first Friday the 13th.
Yes. Oh man. Oof. Yeah.
It's such a great kill, but if you watch it these days, you can see the difference in the skin tones between the prosthetic on his neck and his actual skin.
Absolutely.
And it's very obvious. But you still enjoy watching it because that was such a cool effect back then.
Right. Exactly. Totally. I agree.
It's not because we want to see somebody get an arrow jammed through their neck, It's
We're not sick, man. Come on.
But anyway, so the first kill we have is the guy in the house.
Yes, which we don't really see though.
Nope.
Yeah.
We just see a hint of the aftermath.
Yeah, we do. On the truck.
We don't even really know how Johnny killed him, but this guy got stuck in a trap, and Johnny comes up and kills him somehow. And then Johnny walks back to the house, and then when he's walking back by the guy, we see the guy's bloody, beaten-in face just sitting against the truck. So he's dead.
Yeah. Oh, and that was real quick while we're on that, because there's some moments I really liked as well where we get the camera view. This was one of the first ones. We see it again later, but the camera view goes kind of to the top, looking down at Johnny, which I was like, oh, that's I really like that. I think that's kind of a fun way just to see, like this one, it was perfect because you see the aftermath and it's kind of just as he's walking, you just see it from this view. And I was like, that's just a cool way to see kind of the carnage. It's a different look at it. And I liked how they filmed some of those moments. I thought that was neat.
No, absolutely. Cinematography was done by Pierce Derks.
Awesome.
The guy's name.
Love it. I love it.
And I agree. This movie could have been a lot more boring if they had just kept using the same camera angles. Yeah, we did see the camera following Johnny quite a bit, but the fact that the camera still showed Johnny's point of view while also using different angles to show what Johnny was doing. Sometimes it was the victim's point of view angle.
True.
But we're still seeing what Johnny is doing.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Great.
So,
man.
yeah.
Smart way to do it. A very smart way to do it.
What I'm trying to say is I agree.
Oh, okay, great.
So our first really good kill, though,
Yes.
is Aaron.
Yeah, dude. Oh my god.
How does Aaron die, Andrew?
Oh, so Aaron's out. I think he's going to go to the bathroom or something, even though they all say he's going to go meet with these girls he met. But he's by a tree, and Johnny comes up behind him, and I can't remember. What does he have? It's not a saw, is it? I don't know.
I don't know. It's like a metal knife-like thing.
Yeah, and he puts it... So imagine seeing him looking at us. Johnny's behind this tree, and he comes up, and the hands come around, and this metal knife, goes into Aaron, right? Aaron's mouth, and essentially just keeps getting pulled through to the tree, and then his body falls while the head is like still on the knife or whatever, like the top part of it. I mean, or is it? Does that fall first?
The top of the head falls off.
Right,
it's more
that's
realistic.
Right. That's right. That falls off first. It's just, but it's such a gruesome, like brutal kill, and it's not like it doesn't take a second, and you're like, oh, that was it. You watch him kind of pull this thing closer and closer to the tree. It's brutal. It's a great kill, though, man. It's wild.
And that's another thing I appreciate about this movie, because something you just brought up. It does treat these kills as physically realistic.
Right. Yes.
There's not a cheesy moment where the body falls and the head's still sitting there.
Right.
The top of the head falls off and the rest of the body is. But even more gruesome than the kill itself, I thought was then we see Johnny walking through the woods.
Yes.
In his right hand, he's got the top of Aaron's head. And his left hand, he's dragging Aaron's body, but his hand is just gripping like the cavity left in Aaron's like head and neck. And that he's dragging Aaron's body like that. And he's also like super strong.
Right. Yeah.
He's having no problem doing this.
Yeah. But again, that's a great moment too, because it's maybe some have touched on this a little, but you don't really see how'd the body get to these places in horror movies. Like the final girl falls down this shaft, and there's all the bodies that we've seen killed earlier in this spot. So it was nice to, I mean, not nice, but it was just interesting to see him take this body. Now he's putting it in a new spot. You know, you just never get to see that, I guess, or rarely. So it's kind of
Rarely. I would say rarely.
Rarely, because you do. You're right. You do get to. But it was just nice to see, I guess, something different, sort of.
I mean, in Friday the 13th movies, they always pop up somewhere, like you said.
True. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But,
like you said, the final girl usually comes across all the dead bodies,
right,
in a string of what?
Yeah, exactly. But how'd they get there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Jason put him there somehow. But this was, you watch him take this body to this, which is another great scene, to the fire station or firehouse or whatever.
The ranger station.
Ranger station, thank you. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And I love that he breaks the window of the ranger station to get in and then just throws the top of the head in.
Yes.
And that's where he gets his mask.
Yep. How does he get the mask? How does he break the glass? You remember?
I don't. Tell me.
He throws Aaron's body at the glass to break
that's
it.
right. That was so good.
It was great.
Wow.
I know. Brilliant.
So jumping ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But before we jump ahead, actually, another thing I appreciate about this movie,
please,
and something they did on purpose, all of the things that he uses to kill after Aaron they're these logging tools that the loggers use. They're actual, like, just tools that you would find in that ranger station.
Right.
He's got an axe. He's got the hook on chains that they use to pull logs and stuff. Yep. Because this is a town where there was logging and stuff. That was the industry of this town, logging.
Yep.
And we hear, if we listen to the radio broadcast, we hear that work is drying up for the loggers and people are out of work and such and stuff like that.
Yep.
But let's jump ahead. Now we have Aurora and Brody on the pier, the dock of the lake.
Yeah.
And so I'll take Brody here.
Okay, yeah, please. Yeah.
So Brody and Aurora, again, jumping into other parts of the movie that I appreciated, we do have our stereotypical people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Aaron was our stoner, comedy, whatever, kind of a comic relief
plucky
stoner
comic
dude.
Relief, yeah.
And he was the first to go.
Yeah.
We have Chris and Troy, who are the couple, but Troy is an a-hole.
Yeah.
And we get the idea that Colt, this guy that Chris invited along with the group, is in love with Chris, but he's also kind of a loner guy, kind of a, he's different.
Right.
Evan is Troy's just best friend or whatever. He's just the friend.
Right.
Nothing really crazy about him. And then we have Brody and Aurora, and they are the quintessential girls. But in this movie, they have an attraction to one another.
Yeah, they do.
Except Aurora is fed up with Brody using high school tactics to come on to her, including trying to lure her into swimming in this lake before when Aurora wants to go do yoga. So they have a little bit of conversation. Then Aurora leaves to go do yoga. But the interesting thing is that Johnny is watching them from across the lake. He embeds his axe into a stump, and then he just starts walking into the lake. And this is one of those moments where I was surprised that the characters on the dock didn't just notice a guy walking out of the corner of their eye or something, because he's out in the open.
Right.
But he walks until he's completely submerged in the lake, and then you don't see him.
Yeah. Yep.
But because we know he's always walking, you just imagine that he's just walking on the bed of this lake.
Yep.
And we don't really see much. It's just a kind of a fun kill. Brody is grabbed from underneath the water, and she's taken down, and then she comes up for air, but she's like, and then he takes her down again, and then her body floats to the top. He has drowned her, snapped her bones, whatever, who knows?
Yeah.
But she's dead.
Yes.
And then he makes his way to where Aurora is doing yoga. I can't wait to hear you try and describe this one.
Oh, man. Okay. So, yeah, Aurora's up doing yoga at the top of a cliff, and he comes up and cracks a twig or something. Of course, Aurora looks back thinking it's Brody, or Brody? Yeah. And, of course, sees Johnny and screams and kind of backs up But she's at a cliff, so it's, jump to my death or die with Johnny, whatever. So she stays there. Johnny takes one of those hooks that you were talking about with the logs and stabs it through her. I mean, through her. And I'm trying to remember if he does it through
From
her
the back.
Yeah, thank you.
From
Yep.
the back and out her stomach.
Out her stomach, yes. And, I mean, you see his whole fist come out with this hook, which is great. And then he turns around, or she turns around to look at him. And then oh, yeah, wait, help me out. You help me out. Yeah,
Because I wrote it all down.
Okay, yes, yeah, you do this one. Because this was the kill that everyone's talking about. I didn't see what it was. I just heard, you gotta see it for the yoga kill. That was what people said.
Oh, you heard about the yoga kill?
That's all people people were like, "Yeah, see the yoga kill," and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's all I need to know." Because
I remember you mentioned that scene,
that was the one,
and I figured this was that scene.
This was that scene. So yeah, help me, because it is wild and it deserves.
Yeah.
justice.
So she turns around, and he pulls the hook through her body even more, but then he roughly spins her back around. Oh no, when she's facing him, he pulls the hook further out of her stomach and then just slams it into her head. He hooks it into her head. And then he turns her around and then he just starts pulling on the chain from behind. Her neck is bent down. Her head is bent downwards. You see her vertebrae and her neck just snapping, and he keeps pulling and pulling. And you're sitting there watching, is he doing what I think he's doing?
Yeah,
and sure enough, he uses the hook that's embedded in her head to pull her head all the way through the hole that he's made through her torso. And then he kicks her down the rock slide off the edge of the cliff.
So, yeah, you all heard that correct. Her head goes through her stomach. So essentially, it'd be like her looking at
and comes out her
back. It's wild.
Yeah. I was just like, it was kind of like the big kill in Terrifier 2, which
Yes.
I won't spoil for anybody that hasn't seen it.
Right.
But it's kind of like that, where I was just like, it was so over the top and crazy that it didn't bother me at all. I was just like, are you seriously?
Yeah.
Really? Are you doing that? But yeah, he did it. And behind the scenes, one thing Chris Nash said is that the reason he put in a kill like that is that we've seen all the other tricks and stuff that slashers have done. We've seen throats get slit and stuff.
Right.
He wanted to challenge himself to do something that he's never seen, that nobody's ever seen, and to see if he could do it. And he did it.
Yeah, I would call that a success, my friend. I have never seen a kill like that. And I don't know if I ever will again. That was insane.
My God.
I know. Oh, that scene is wild. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So then he walks through the woods back to the cabin. But real quick, one other thing I appreciated was we do get to see a faraway shot of him kind of pushing or kicking her body off the edge of the cliff.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I appreciated this, but her body doesn't fall and slide all the way down to the bottom. It kind of stops halfway down because that's what a body would do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why. It just felt so real to me when he did that.
That's fair, man. No, I like that. I agree.
So he makes his way back to the cabin.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep.
No, go ahead. What
Well, no, I was just going to say, are you going to bring up that he sits or no?
Yes.
Okay. Then keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Why don't you tell me?
Well, no, so we hear arguing in the background and someone throws the keys. I can't remember who it was. Throws the keys to the truck, and of course they land right in front of Johnny, who picks them up. And then he goes behind a tree and sits down with the keys and then takes his mat.
But why?
Why does he?
Do you remember why?
Mm-mm.
So in the story of his past, he was like I mentioned, he was a mentally disabled person.
Right, right.
But he loved his toys.
Oh, right.
And the firefighters lured him to the top of the tower with the promise of new toys. So there is a toy car.
That's right.
On one of these keychains that's attached to these keys. So he goes and he sits down because he wants to play with the car.
Ah, I like that. I did not catch that. That's great. Oh, this movie. But the reason I wanted you to bring up him sitting down is he does take his mask off and we get to see his face, which I wanted to say I really liked it. It looked, to me, I thought it looked great. I was like, that's perfect. That's what I was hoping for if we did get an unmasking, you know. I was like, he looks great. I was very happy with it. I was pleased with it.
Buddy, do you know why he looked great?
No. Oh, yes.
You do. I think
yes,
you
I
do.
Yes, I do.
Because the prosthetic makeup effects were done by Chris Nash. He did some, but also Steven Kostanski, who, as you may know, my friend, directed and also did prosthetic makeup effects for probably the movie of the century, PG Psycho Goreman.
Oh my gosh.
Chris Nash also worked on Psycho Goreman.
I saw that. Yeah. Yeah. And I did always say, when we talked about Psycho Goreman, I did say that the prosthetics and the outfits were great. I did say that. All right?
You also said you have to rewatch that movie someday.
Someday I will.
That was like 3 years ago.
Yep, someday.
3 years ago.
Maybe when I come visit you.
Maybe when you're on your deathbed and dying.
Yeah.
You'll just laugh at me. I'll be standing there, and I'll be like, Andrew, I'm going to miss you. And you're going to be like, I never watched Psycho Goreman again. And then you die.
Or I'll say, I watched it again, and here's what I thought.
Yes.
Yeah, man. It's dark.
Oh, man.
I love you, buddy.
I love you. So he's playing with this toy. But yes, that's why his makeup looks so great and why some of the other makeup effects look great. Steven Kostanski is amazing.
It was, yeah. He looked perfect. Like when he took the mask off, because we see him from the back first when he takes it off, and I was like, are they going to show it or not? I was like, if they do, I hope it's good. And then they do, and I was like, oh, good. That's perfect. He looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked great.
So Troy and Colt and Chris are all arguing. Mm-hmm. Evan, we don't really know this, but Evan is inside the cabin.
Right.
I think Colt throws Troy's keys. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But then they're arguing, I think, because Chris thinks there's somebody out there. She's actually kind of worried, I think, about Aaron, and they're saying Aaron just went to meet up with those gas station girls, whatever.
Yep.
So her and Colt go off to the ranger station, which leaves Troy there. Troy goes to get the keys, and I forget what it is, because I saw it last night, but I didn't make a note of it, but something triggers Johnny. He hears something that triggers him.
Oh, yeah, and then he breaks the key chain.
He crushes the toy in his hand.
Shoot, I can't remember too.
We'll just leave that for people to find out when they watch it if they haven't seen it yet.
Yep, yeah.
But he gets up, and that's the brilliant scene where Troy has gone in the cabin. He puts the stick on the car steering wheel to make the horn go off. Then he does the 360 around the cabin. And like you mentioned, I think it's just amazing that the camera just follows him around the cabin. And by the time he gets back around, this is the other thing. When he starts his little lap, he throws his axe down into the stump.
Yeah.
And I think it's really kind of creepy and eerie that when Troy comes out of the cabin to see what's going on, he's just so fixated on his anger. Like, who's messing with them, that he doesn't even notice that now there's an axe in this stump that wasn't there before.
That's a good point. That's good. That's creepy. Yeah, I like that.
So Johnny comes around, he grabs the axe, and Troy is at the car. Johnny goes up to axe Troy, but Troy actually fights back for a moment. Mm-hmm. Seems like he's doing an okay job for a second, but then he falls, and Johnny axes Troy in the leg.
Yes.
But then Evan, who saw Johnny walking around the cabin, comes out with a shotgun and shoots Johnny. Mm-hmm. Again, so many brilliant moments in this movie. I love the fact that the camera then just sits on the other side of Johnny's body, laying on the ground, as we see Evan and Troy tying a tourniquet around Troy's leg and saying, we gotta, there's a trail here, we gotta go, we gotta run. And of course, like, it's not unrealistic because he just shot him in the chest with a shotgun.
Right.
So they obviously think this guy's dead.
Right. Yep.
They don't think he's going to come back to life.
Right.
But after they start running, he gets up. And yeah, that we see one of those top-down camera angles.
Yes.
And he just throws the axe. As the camera goes over to the guys, we see that his axe was perfectly thrown into the back of Evan's head.
Yes.
And then he picks up a boulder.
Oh, dude.
And what does he do with it?
Well, he goes up to, was it Colt? Is that the other guy?
Troy.
Sorry, Troy. He goes up to Troy with this boulder, who, you know, he kind of turns Troy around to, like, look at him. And then just throws this boulder on his head. And it just mushes. I mean, and the sound effect, like, they did a really good job on that. Because you just go, oh, I remember just going like, ah. Because you just see blood.
I don't think he turns Troy around, though. I think Troy just, like, because Troy's leg is hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Troy's just crawling, and then he, like, turns onto his back to look at Johnny.
Okay, that's
right?
what it was. Yeah, either way,
I don't
he's
think Johnny
looking at
turned him
Johnny.
over. Yeah.
Right. And then we see the boulder just throws it at his head. And I mean, it's like a watermelon, you know? You just see everything go out. Oh, it's so good.
But once again, this is what I'm talking about. This movie has a couple of just amazing magic tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Because the camera does not cut.
Right.
The camera is looking from up above, and we see Troy on his back, and he's actually like, no, don't do it.
Right.
And the camera doesn't cut, and we see the boulder just destroy his head.
Yeah.
And blood just splat.
Yeah.
So at some point, the camera cuts to a fake Johnny.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that was CG.
It looked good, whatever it was. It looked good.
I know this movie mostly used practical effects, but yeah, this one looks amazing.
Yeah, it looked great. It was a good, really good kill. Yeah.
So Chris and Colt come back, and Johnny chases them off. And then now we're at the ranger station at night.
Yes.
Because Johnny is walking, and he's made his way to the ranger station.
Yes.
And this is where we hear the ranger talk about how he's the one that put Johnny in the ground before after Johnny killed his dad and a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the stupid part where Johnny gets his gun. This was maybe just as brutal in a different way as the yoga kill.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just sat there like, why? Why are you doing this, Johnny?
Yeah.
Yikes, man.
Because he gets the upper hand on the sheriff. Chris and Colt run off. The sheriff tells them to go, or I think whatever. They run off.
Yeah.
And Johnny grabs the sheriff who's crawling on the ground. He grabs him from behind, and he pulls the sheriff's body up until he breaks his back, which completely paralyzes the sheriff. Yeah. Sorry, the ranger.
Ranger, right? Yeah.
Then he takes him into this shed.
Well, how does he take him in though?
You tell me.
He puts a hook through his chest first, and then drags him on the dirt with this hook in him to the shed.
Oh my God.
This is brutal. This one was brutal.
It's brutal because he's paralyzed.
Right.
So he can't feel anything. We don't know if he has feeling in his body, but he can't move anything.
True.
So he just knows everything that's happening to him, but maybe he can't feel it.
I hope so.
When you're paralyzed, you don't feel anything anymore. But yeah, drags him into this place where there is this gas-powered
log cutter,
wood log cutter, which is like this sharp axe type thing that just goes forward and then breaks a log in half.
Mm-hmm.
And so first Johnny puts the ranger down while he demonstrates how this machine works with a log. Then he pulls the ranger's arm over it, cuts off his arm, and then he drags the ranger's body onto it so that his neck is in line with the log cutter and decapitates him with the log cutter.
Oh, man. And again, though, it's not fast. Like, it's not quick either. This log, or maybe it's a log splitter. I can't remember. But either way, I mean, even with the arm, like, it takes a second for it to almost break this arm and cut through. And then he puts the neck there and does the same thing. Like, it's not quick. And it takes its time. And then eventually you see, like, the blood start and the head topple out. Like, oh, man. That one's brutal, dude. That's a brutal kill.
And the camera doesn't really cut a lot.
No.
We see we see the preparation of Johnny putting this guy in place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which makes sense, because this is the guy that stopped Johnny before, so it makes sense that his kill is so brutal, because this is like Johnny's revenge, or his, whatever. I mean, it's
That's
brutal.
true.
Oof.
I think I kind of forget that when he pulls him into the shed that Johnny's getting revenge.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I'm just so in awe over the brutality of this kill.
Yeah, it's bad. Oh my gosh.
But here, once again, I just want to bring up another tiny little touch that for some reason, just really impressed me.
Okay.
When he cuts his arm off with the log cutter, log splitter, whatever it is, you see blood start to pool out from where his arm was cut, right?
Right, yes.
Then when he cuts his head off, new blood is pulling out from the guy's neck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just this effect of that new blood mixing in with the blood from his arm.
Uh-huh.
And it's like kind of a different coagulated color, and it just looks real. As far as I know, not that I've ever seen this happen in real life, but it's what I imagine it would look like. And it's just this touch that that they gave it.
Right.
That I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, they put detail into it, for sure. For sure. They put their time and energy into this, which is great. It's a nice like, hey, we got you, audience. We know you're not dumb.
Yeah.
It's nice. Yeah.
So then we have the final kill, and we've kind of mentioned this already. They've run into the woods, and then idiot Colt jumps up behind Johnny. But I did love the brutality of this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Because Johnny's big.
Right.
And the fact that he walks slowly, he doesn't run, but he has every ability to move fast when he needs to.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which kind of reminded me of Godzilla -1, my friend.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Because Godzilla was a slow-moving creature in Godzilla -1, but then suddenly he would just move fast with his arms or his neck or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, it was kind of weird that this movie reminded me of Godzilla in a way. But yeah, he just turns around and slams the axe into Colt's head against a tree.
Yeah.
And just, again, destroys Colt's head.
Yeah.
But then he's so pissed off that he just keeps axing Colt on the ground, just slamming his axe. And I love that after Chris runs away, the camera at this point was far away from Johnny.
Yeah.
But then the camera, they're like, no, we're going to show you this.
Yeah.
And then we see Johnny just constantly just bludgeoning his shoulder, neck area with this axe. And it's just like, Jesus, dude.
Yeah. Brutal.
Amazing.
I know. It actually, it kind of made me, a little icky, because just for realism, I every once in a while, if you hear, a true crime podcast or something, and they're like, they stabbed the person, 30 times, and you're like, how, what? That's, what? How is that even a thing? 30, and then I watched this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it kind of made me think, psychos may do stuff like that. I don't know, it just made me kind of oh, wow, that's I don't like that. You know what I mean? No, it hit different, I guess. Yeah. Ugh. Ugh.
So we've already talked about the last act and what happens, but the one thing we didn't really get into, what did you think of the story that the woman tells Chris in the car about the bear? Did you think anything of it?
Well, I mean, I thought it was meant to just be about Johnny, or this story is about this animal that just lives in the woods, just like Johnny is sort of this animal that just wants to kill, just like that bear wants to kill. So I just looked at it as whatever's out there is this animal that will always kill. It's just there to kill. But I don't know. I don't know if there was anything, symbolism or something that I missed. I don't know. I mean,
that is the symbolism.
Right.
The symbolism is Johnny.
Right.
This is what Nash said.
Okay.
And it's about the whole film as a whole, but it makes sense when it comes to the final monologue.
Okay.
He said, "We always wanted to treat this almost like a nature documentary. It's lulling you into a sense that the danger isn't quite there. When you see tourists getting really close to bears, they're just like, oh no, look, it's not doing anything, it's fine. And then all of a sudden the bear just turns around and charges at you. You're way too defenseless, and you just have no idea that they're capable of this much power and brutality.
I like that. I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
I listened to it both times, what she was saying, and the second time it hit me that the director really wants you to have this unsettling feeling that Johnny is just out there.
Yeah.
And that even though he has the necklace, her whole point about some animals just kill just to do it. They don't kill because for food. They leave it there. They don't eat it. They just kill, and they just keep killing. And at first you think, oh, Johnny found the necklace and he took it, and you see at the end that it's not there, so he's taken it and he's at peace now. Mm-hmm. But then you're like, but is he? Or is he still out there and he's just going to keep killing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now he's just going to kill. He's got his necklace, but now he's just going to walk around and kill.
Yep.
Because he's an animal. He doesn't sleep, and it's just, he's just walking.
Oh, man.
I'm so grateful he didn't pop up at the end.
Me too.
Because that would have been unrealistic. That would have been Jason.
Exactly.
Somehow Jason they've been driving for like 15 minutes, but somehow Jason caught up to them, you know? I'm like, I love the fact that he doesn't necessarily catch up to them, but you still feel like he's out there.
Right. Yep. See, and I when she's looking at the forest, I'm like looking too. I was really into it. Like, am I missing something? Like, cause she's real, but then, you know, realizing obviously that she's just in fear, it hit, but I was like, am I missing? And then it hit and I was like, oh man, that's good. Like, I'm with you. I'm glad he didn't pop up. That would have been such a cliche and would have kind of gone against this movie's, I don't know, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good, man. This movie.
Yeah, that's the movie, man.
That's the movie, dude. I love it.
I think anything else I have to say, we're going to answer in 3 questions, except for the fact that Chris Nash did say that he'd like to do a sequel.
Interesting. Okay.
But what he's got to do is figure out how to make the sequel keep its experimentation. Yeah. While still making sense and being entertaining.
True. Very much so. That'll be an interesting challenge. But, I mean, honestly, after seeing this, I have hope. So, he knows what he's doing.
Hope in your soul.
Hope in my soul.
Not soap in your hole.
No.
I just said the punchline to a joke without telling you the joke, so there you go.
I like it. Well, I was thinking...
3 questions.
Who would cross the bridge of death must answer me these questions 3.
Question number 1, my friend. What did you think was the best kill or death in A Violent Nature?
So again, I mean, we discussed them because it's almost its own characters, these kills. It's like a part of this movie. So there's some great ones. But I mean, I gotta go with Aurora. Just because it's such a, like we talked about, it's so unique, something totally different, and the one that I was really curious about. So, and it didn't disappoint. So I gotta go with Aurora for me. What about you?
I think I'm gonna go with the Ranger.
Yeah, that was yep.
Because again, Aurora's was just so over the top that it was just like unbelievable.
Right.
Not unbelievable that I don't believe that could happen, but I was just in awe at what they decided to try and do in this movie. Whereas with the Ranger, I felt the Ranger's pain. I felt his fear, the dread of somebody being paralyzed, but knowing what they're going through. And it's one thing if he's paralyzed and can't feel anything, but if he's paralyzed and can feel, that's even worse. But he didn't scream.
Right. Yep.
Like, I don't think when you're paralyzed, unless it paralyzes vocal cords, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I feel like you'd still be able to scream or say something, but I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know.
But that one really actually bothered me a little bit more than the yoga scene. The yoga scene was just amazing.
Yeah.
But this one, got to me.
That's a great answer, man. Great.
Number 2. Did you think In a Violent Nature was scary?
I didn't. I could see how people would, but like I said, I mean, this was such a love letter to movies that I love and that mean a lot to me that I just was more entertained and more just having a good time. So it didn't scare me. But I could see people being freaked out by this one. What about you?
I'm going to say that it got to me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think because I didn't think this movie was scary the first 2/3 of it, but the last 20 minutes of this movie, it got to me. I realized that because I watched it at night with the lights out and everything, that when I went outside to feed the stray cats out back, like, I just imagined somebody walking and just constantly coming towards you and just constantly walking. And that's when I was like, wow, all those walking scenes that I started to get tired of were just brilliant.
Yeah, I love it.
Almost, if it wasn't for the stupidity of some of the people. Andrew.
Yes.
Number 3, did you have fun with horror?
I had a great time with horror, man. This was such a treat, this movie. I loved it. Yeah, I had a great time. I think I know the answer, but did you have fun with horror?
Yes.
Trust me. I've seen people come out of there a lot worse than that. They made it through just fine. Right is right.
You've seen worse, huh?
Well, I picked your favorite movie of the year so far, but who knows what you're picking next? It could take that place. I don't know. Or it could be an old movie. This is one I do not know what you're picking. I don't have any thoughts or clues or ideas. So I'm very curious, my man. What are you picking for our next movie?
Andrew, it is time.
Uh-oh.
This is not a recent movie. It's semi-recent, but it's not from this year.
Okay.
This is a movie that we've been waiting for.
Oh, no. Okay. Oh, man. Okay.
The year was 2019.
Okay.
Mike Flanagan directed the sequel to both The Shining, the book, and The Shining, the movie.
Yeah.
But more a sequel to the movie.
Yes.
Andrew, it is time for you to watch Dr. Sleep.
I have been wanting to watch this lately. I don't know why, but I've been thinking about this movie. Maybe it's just because you and I are on like the same wavelength. But yeah, I've been very curious about this one for a while, and I'm so excited. This didn't even cross my radar that this would be what you're picking. So I'm super pumped about this, man. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I've been waiting for the right time to do this one, and this felt like the right time.
Yeah.
Because while there are a few recent releases that we could do, some of the bigger ones have not, as of this moment, been released on home video just yet.
Right.
So I think it's a good time to test your Mike Flanagan hatred or love. We'll see what you think of Mr. Flanagan when you see Dr. Sleep.
Yes. Oh, man. Okay. I'm really excited about this. I'm very curious about this movie. Yeah.
Good.
Huh. Yeah, not at all what I was thinking you were going to pick. That's great. What a good surprise. I love it. Wow.
And also, everybody, if you want to go back, I don't know which episode it was, but it was our first year, 2021, our Halloween episode, I believe it was. We talked about The Shining. Andrew saw The Shining for the very first time. Mm-hmm. And I think at that time you even said, I'm curious to see what Dr. Sleep does with this story.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I am very curious.
Yeah, I'll tell you this much. In my opinion, you know I like this movie a lot.
Right, yeah.
And in my opinion, Mike Flanagan pulled off something that could have been impossible to do, but he made a sequel to Stanley Kubrick's movie while also respecting Stephen King's book. It's just...
That's pretty cool.
That's all I'm going to say. I'm looking forward to you seeing it.
So we may even spoil a little Dr. Sleep book then, I'm assuming.
Oh, of course, because it's an adaptation.
Yeah. So I'll definitely want to know some differences, ins and outs, all that fun stuff when we do this. So
I'm not going to be able to tell you that much.
Oh, okay.
I don't
Just
remember. Yeah, I don't remember the book that well.
Okay. All right.
Enough to know the differences, but we'll talk about some stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just a few things.
Yay.
But everybody, so go back, listen to that episode. Also, we've got some stuff planned for Patreon. This has been a busy month for me, especially, but we still have the 2 episodes that are available right now for our patrons. Mm-hmm. I've done a poll recently, and I will be talking about the Hellraiser series on Patreon. I'm going to go through all the movies. Andrew might jump in at times. I may have other friends that jump in at times. It may just be me at times, but we're going to do that. And then it was also requested by a couple of our patrons that we watch, speaking of Mike Flanagan, that we watch and discuss his TV series. And we've always kind of shied away from doing TV series here on the podcast just because of our format.
Right.
But Patreon, when that was mentioned, I was like, this is the perfect place for that.
Yeah, very much so. Oh, yeah.
So we're not sure when exactly that's happening. Hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah.
But expect that very soon.
Yeah, dude. I'm excited for that. I am excited for that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm excited because we're going to do The Haunting of Hill House first.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it. You have not.
I have not. Nope.
The only Flanagan-directed TV series that you've seen is, I believe, Midnight Mass,
Correct.
right?
Yep. Which I did love.
Okay.
I did love that.
And we might get to that. Who knows? Let's just focus on Hill House.
Yeah, that works.
But everybody, yeah, please go. If you want to hear us talk about these things in the future, go support us on Patreon, $5 a month. We only have one tier.
Yep.
And you get all the patron exclusives at the moment. Anything we decide in the future, you'll get, just go help us out, support us. You know how it goes.
Yeah, please and thank you.
And, follow us on social media, follow us everywhere else. But until then, everybody, we love you.
We love you.
Andrew, I love you.
Scotty, I love you.
I had a great time being in a violent nature with you.
I did too.
That sounded weird, but it's true.
It is true. We had fun. That's what this podcast is about. Fun with horror.
Now let's go take a walk through the woods.
That was my plan.
Bye, buddy.
Bye, buddy.